wandering in darkness, no life inside, no hope inside. He called my name and healed my blindness, set me ablaze. Now I'm alive with His love breaking through my heart of stone, love breathing to awake my bones, love reaching out to save my soul, love never gonna let me go. And now my heart, so full of worship, I can't hold back, I can't contain it, for all He's done. Jesus my Savior, I am ablaze and full of thanks for His love breaking through my heart of stone, love breathing to awake my bones, love reaching out to save my soul, love never gonna let me go, love calling me as I am, love making me new again, love lifting me when I can't, love never gonna let me go. Wherever you've been, whatever you've done, come as you are, come into His open arms. Wherever you've been, whatever you've done, come as you are, come find His love breaking through my heart of stone, love breathing to awake my bones, love reaching out to save my soul, love never gonna let me go, love calling me as I am, love making me new again, love lifting me when I can't, love never gonna let me go, love breaking through my heart of stone, love breathing to awake my bones, love reaching out to save my soul, love never gonna let me go, love calling me as I am, love making me new again, love lifting me when I can't, love never gonna let me go, love never gonna let me go, love never gonna let me go. Through the valley of the shadow of death, your perfect love is casting out fear. And even when I'm caught in the middle of the storms of this life, I won't turn back, I know you are near, and I will fear no evil, for my God is with me, and if my God is with me, whom then shall I fear? Whom then shall I fear? Oh no, you never let go, through the calm and through the storm. Oh no, you never let go, in every high and every low. Oh no, you never let go, Lord, you never let go of me. And I can see a light that is coming for the heart that holds on, a glorious light beyond all compare. And there will be an end to these troubles, but until that day comes, we'll live to know you here on the earth, and I will fear no evil, for my God is with me, and if my God is with me, whom then shall I fear? Whom then shall I fear? Oh no, you never let go, through the calm and through the storm. Oh no, you never let go, in every high and every low. Oh no, you never let go, Lord, you never let go of me. Yes, I can see a light that is coming for the heart that holds on, and there will be an end to these troubles, but until that day comes, still I will praise you, still I will praise, and I can see a light that is coming for the heart that holds on. And there will be an end to these troubles, but until that day comes, still I will praise you, still I will praise you. Oh no, you never let go through the calm and through the storm. Oh no, you never let go in every high and every low. Oh no, you never let go, Lord, you never let go of me. I still have joy, I still have joy, after all the things we've been through. I still have joy, I still have joy, I still have joy, after all the things we've been through. I still have joy, I still have peace, I still have peace, after all the things we've been through. I still have peace, I still have faith, I still have faith, after all the things we've been through. I still have faith, I still have hope, I still have hope, after all the things we've been through. I still have hope, I still have sweet love, I still have love, after all the things we've been through. I still have hope, I still have joy, I still have joy, I still have joy, after all the things we've been through, after all the things we've been through, after all the things we've been through. I still have joy. Every praise is to our God, every word of worship with one accord. Every praise is to our God. Sing hallelujah. He's coming on the clouds, kings and kingdoms will bow down, and every chain will break as broken hearts declare His praise. For who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before Him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sin of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Every
hear me? Okay. Good to have you all here tonight. I got right here, is that too far away from me? I was trying to do something special. Is that better? All right, it's good to have you all here. I'm not knowing which direction I'm going tonight. But anyway, I was handed this little sheet and said I was doing the greeting, so Butch tried to inform me of what I'm supposed to be saying, so I got a short-term memory, so I don't remember. But anyway, it's really good to have you all here. It's been quite a crazy week, I imagine, for all of us, so, but it is good to have you here. We're going to have Daniel here in just a second open us up, and then Otis won't be here tonight, so this is all you got. So I'm here. So anyway, and we got a visitor tonight. He's really not a visitor, so if you haven't met him, go back and shake his hand afterwards. Anyway, Daniel, you want to open us up? There are a lot of people we need to remember our prayers. There are some that we probably all know about, but if you're thinking of them, just keep them in your prayers daily. There is a pretty long prayer list, at least for all of us, continuously. So let's try to remember all those that we know that need our prayers. I'm going to put a little pity on you so you feel bad for me. But anyway, I went to the back doctor yesterday, and because I've really been struggling with this back of mine. My legs going numb on me all the time. I used to walk up to 3 miles at least 2-3 times a week. I can't even walk a quarter of a mile right now. And stand at the kitchen sink, and my back and my right hip just goes so numb so bad, it hurts so bad I can't really stand it. So anyway, I went to the doctor, my back doctor yesterday, and he took some images. And so he finally came in the room, and he put them up on the computer. He says, "This ain't good." And I said, "Okay." Yeah, I think he thought I was going to get upset or something. But anyway, he said, "You see your back?" He said, "It's supposed to be curved." He said, "It's not curved." He said, "You see, it's almost straight." He said, he called it some degenerate, something or another. And then, of course, that didn't mean much to me. So, and then he said, "You see this space about that wide?" He said, "There's supposed to be 2 vertebrae there." He said, "But they have fused themselves together." And he said, "People do have that done." So, but he said, "They are fused together." He said, "So I'm going to give you a shot for your pain Monday." And he said, 2 weeks after that, I want you to go in for an MRI and see what we really need to do, see what all the rest of the problems are. So, but anyway, if you see me sitting down, it's probably because my legs went numb on me. It'll just match my head, so it'll be all right. So anyway, we are in Leviticus. The 16th chapter is where we're going to be tonight. So, and I was given this material to read, and I've been instructed, don't read it. So I'm going to read pieces of it. And what I'm going to ask is that we all join in and make this a a class of discussion. If there's stuff that you can bring in to what we're reading about, it'd really be great for you to bring up whatever you want to say and add to the lesson. So it's Leviticus, the 16th chapter. So it's Leviticus 16 regulates the most important day of the year for the nation of Israel, the Day of Atonement. Modern Jews still celebrate this day, and they call it Yom Kippur. I know you've all heard that terminology, Yom Kippur. So after the initial anointing ceremony of the tabernacle, that's in Leviticus 8 through 10, this would be the only day each year that anyone could enter the inner room of the tabernacle, the Holy of Holies. And the high priest was that person. This is a statute to do forever in the 7th month, 10th day of the month. We are commanded to afflict our souls, in other words, fast from water and food, and do absolutely no work. I don't know if I could do that. I think I could do away with the food, but I don't know about the work part. So it would be tough for me. But that is if we think about the fasting and doing absolutely no work, prepare the day before, get your foods all ready, and do absolutely nothing. So there's nothing, and I think there are some things, there's certain articles or stuff that is wrote that they can do, but it's very limited in what they could actually do. So anyway, that's another interesting part of this this day. It does not matter if we are in our own country or in another country or with people from another country staying with us. They all must take part. It is on that day the high priest will make atonement for us to cleanse us of our sins before God. So no matter where you're at, no matter who you're with, no matter if it's at home or another country, and no matter who's with you, you all got to participate in that day together. Y'all. The Day of Atonement is a high Sabbath day of rest, and it is to be a statute forever. Once a year, the children of Israel are to observe this day as the God of Israel commanded Moses. In this chapter, Leviticus 16, it explains the order of how the atonement ordinance should proceed. Aaron must make an atonement for himself and his family, and then do so for children of Israel also. Now the Lord spoke to Moses after the death of the 2 sons of Aaron, when they offered profane fire before the Lord and died. And the Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron, your brother, not to come at just any time into the holy place inside the veil, before the mercy seat, which is on the ark, lest he die. For I will appear in a cloud above the mercy seat." So that's another one of those commands. Do not. And even for Aaron, there was just a certain time that he could appear inside. And he couldn't, until that cloud and God had appeared, he couldn't go in there. He could not approach it, couldn't enter. Anything anybody wants to add to that, or anything? Don't be bashful or anything. So just, okay. And the 2 sons were Nadab and Abihu. Did I pronounce that right? Abihu? Okay. Were struck down by the Lord because they came into the holy place and offered profane fire before the Lord. That's Leviticus 10. In chapter 16, God explained the proper way to come before him. Tell Aaron, your brother, not to come at just any time into the holy place inside the veil. Aaron or any other high priest could not come into the holy place any time he pleased. but only at God's invitation and at the appropriate time and place. This was so important that God added the warning, lest he die. Apparently, it was possible for the high priest to die in the Holy of Holies. I guess I didn't realize that before. I mean, I hadn't even thought about the high priest because he didn't enter at the right time, wasn't invited by God to be there, so he would die. So it says, where the Ark of the Covenant and the mercy seat were at that place. Romans 5, 1 through 2 specifically says that because of Jesus' work on our behalf, we have standing access to God. That is for us today. We have that access to God at all times. For them to only, for the high priest only, to be able to have access to God on that day, and only through the invitation of God. Our invitation is continually every day. We have that offered to us through Jesus Christ's death upon the cross. We have that invitation. Aaron shall come into the holy place with the blood of a young bull as a sin offering, and of a ram as a burnt offering. He shall put the holy linen tunic and the linen trousers on his body. He shall be girded with a linen sash, and with the linen turban he shall be attired. These are holy garments. So another one of those rituals where he took off his usual garments as a priest and put on these garments to enter into the Holy of Holies. Therefore he shall wash his body in water and put them on. And he shall take from the congregation of the children of Israel 2 kids of the goats as a sin offering, and 1 ram as a burnt offering. After the warning in verses 1 and 2, God began instructions for the Day of Atonement. Though this chapter describes the ritual of the Day of Atonement, that phrase is not used in this chapter. The phrases comes from Leviticus 23, 27 through 28. The day was the most solemn of all Old Testament rituals. And I think I know they still pretty much on that day. Now, this is page 7 that Otis gave me. And this must have been the day of rest, because there's absolutely nothing on this page. Cut it, okay. I've been instructed by the wife. So. Anyway, so significant was it that in latter Jewish tradition, it came to be called just that, the day. Every arrangement was intended to impress the mind with the solemnity, did I say it right? Of approach to God, and to emphasize the fact that man as a sinner has no right of access save as he approaches through sacrifice. On the Day of Atonement, Aaron started with the blood of a young bull to atone for his own sin and then the sins of his house. So he is starting at the top, cleansing everything, get himself prepared, his whole household cleansed and clean for this day. Aaron must come clothed with garments of humility. That's the garments that he has put on. He did not wear his normal priestly garments for glory and for beauty. Instead, the high priest wore a holy linen tunic and the linen trousers. He was clothed in simple, humble white. He was not to dress in his priestly garments, but in the simple, this is that word again, sacerdotal vestments, is that right? think that's right. Sacerdotal vestments. That's his priestly, are the garments that that he's wearing. Because it was a day of humiliation. And as he was to offer sacrifices for his own sins, it was necessary that he should appear in habits suited to the occasion. Aaron must come washed. Traditionally, this washing was done by immersion. That's another symbol for all of us to think about. I mean, this thing, he had to be totally immersed, had to be cleansed. So that's, for us, that's through our baptism. Aaron must come with 2 goats and 1 ram to complete the offering of atonement from the congregation of the children of Israel. The 2 goats are regarded as one sacrifice. They are a sin offering. Hence, to show how unimportant and non-essential is the distinction between them, the lot is employed. Also, while the one is being slain, the other stands before the door of the tabernacle. This shows that both are parts of one whole, and it is only from the impossibility of presenting both halves of the truth to be symbolized in one that 2 are taken. Now we will get into what the high priest does on the Day of Atonement. Aaron shall offer the bull as a sin offering, which is for himself, and make atonement for himself and for his house. He shall take the 2 goats and present them before the Lord at the door of the tabernacle of meeting. Then Aaron shall cast lots for 2 goats, 1 lot for the Lord and the other for the scapegoat. Now this, to me, is really interesting, the scapegoat, the 2 goats. 1 for the sacrifice, 1 for a scapegoat. And that gets real interesting as we go read the rest of this. I mean, I've read this before, but I'd never really stopped to think about the scapegoat. And Aaron shall bring the goat on which the Lord lot fell, and the other it as sin offering. But the goat on which the lot fell to be the scapegoat shall be presented alive before the Lord, to make atonement upon it, and to let it go as a scapegoat into the wilderness. The emphasis is this in this chapter is that Aaron, or every high priest after him, was to do this by himself. The phrase Aaron shall or he shall is repeated more than 20 times in this chapter. Not until the very end of the ritual was there any assistance to Aaron. Normally the tabernacle was a busy place with many priests and Levites and those bringing their offerings and many people about. But on this day, the tabernacle was empty, except for 1 man doing his work. There were 2 goats used in the sacrifices made on the Day of Atonement. Aaron presented them before the Lord. According to some, the 2 goats were to be as alike as possible, similar in size, color, and value. Then Aaron shall cast lots for the 2 goats. 1 goat was for the Lord and would be sacrificed as a sin offering. The other goat was a scapegoat and would be released into the wilderness. Each goat had an important role on the Day of Atonement. There are many theories as to the nature of the lots that were cast to choose between the goats. The scapegoat was literally the scapegoat. It escaped death and went into the wilderness. And Aaron shall bring the bull of the sin offering, which is for himself, and make an atonement to himself and for his house, and shall kill the bull as a sin offering, which is for himself. Then he shall take a censer full of burning coals of fire from the altar before the Lord. Now this is another quite interesting. In order for him to be in there, with his hands full of sweet incense between fine, and bring it inside the veil. And he shall put the incense on the fire before the Lord, that the cloud of incense may cover the mercy seat that is on the testimony, lest he die. He shall take some of the blood of the bull and sprinkle it with his fingers on the mercy seat and on the east side. And before the mercy seat he shall sprinkle some of the blood with his finger 7 times. The idea was that Aaron could only make atonement for the sins of the people of Israel after his sins, and the sins of his house were dealt with. So only until his house, him and his household, was dealt with could he do that. According to the tradition, he prayed the following prayer. O God, I have committed iniquity, transgressed, and sinned before thee, I and my house. O God, forgive the iniquities and transgressions and sins which I have committed and transgressed and sinned before thee and my house, as it is written in the law of thy servant Moses. For on this day shall atonement be made for you to cleanse you from all your sins. Ye shall be clean before the Lord. That's Leviticus 16:30. He shall put the incense on the fire before the Lord. This created more than a pleasant smell. As the high priest entered the most holy place, it created a cloud of smoke to cover the mercy seat. This shielded the high priest from full exposure to the glory of the Lord and was necessary lest he die. Once the high priest entered the Holy of Holies, he sprinkled some of the blood of the bull on the mercy seat, even as it is hidden in the cloud of incense. This was the lid on top of the Ark of the Covenant. The idea was that God was above the mercy seat. I will appear in the cloud above the mercy seat, Leviticus 16:2. And as he looked down upon the Ark of the Covenant, he saw the sin of man. Man's sin was represented by the items in the Ark of the Covenant. Manna Israel complained about tablets of the law Israel broke, and a budding almond rod given as a response to the Israel's rebellion. Then the high priest sprinkled atoning blood 7 times on the mercy seat, covering over the emblems of Israel's sin. God saw the blood covered over the sin, and atonement was made. This captures the thought behind the Hebrew word of atonement, kippur, which means to cover. This was done once a year in this place. Now, I don't know, James, maybe you can help with this. Did they clean, was any of that cleaned up, or did they just continue to do this year after year after year with the blood being sprinkled with the hands on this? Do you know? So, that's what. Well, I don't know of any place where it says that they cleans all this. I'm thinking that this was year after year that this was done on this, continually sprinkling this blood on over the top of it. So I'm guessing it was pretty. Anyway, that's just me thinking. The idea was that God was above the mercy seat. I think I read all that. And he took down upon the Ark of the Covenant. He saw the sin of man. Read that. Okay. Then the high priest sprinkled atoning blood 7 times on the mercy seat, covering over the emblems of Israel's sins. God saw the blood covered over the sin, and atonement was made. This captures the thought behind the Hebrew word of atonement. Kippur means to cover. I guess I read it. Sin was not removed, but covered over by sacrificial blood. So there we go. The blood continually covers the sins, but never removed. The New Testament idea of atonement is that our sin is not merely covered, but removed, taken away. So there is no barrier between God and man any longer. Is there any input right here now? Anybody can say anything? Okay. Anybody else? That's right.
And we're no different from them, except for the fact that we have, Jesus' blood and interceding for us. So maybe a little more mindfulness might be a good thing on our part.
And humility. As we talked, we talked about him changing earlier on this thing about he changing his clothes, an act of becoming, humble, or taking off his fancy, I guess, robes and stuff that he wore during the rest of the year and put on the white linen clothes. And to me, that means a lot as far as becoming humble on that day, or presenting yourself in full humility, I guess, to God, to present all the sacrifices of himself, his family, and the rest of Israel. So, anybody else? Okay. The New Testament idea. Okay, this I got. Before the mercy seat, he shall sprinkle some of the blood. Because of this phrase, some believe that this blood was put on the mercy seat itself and on the ground in front of the mercy seat and Ark of the Covenant. The goat selected for sacrifice was offered to make atonement for the tabernacle. Then he shall kill the goat of the sin offering, which is for the people. Bring its blood inside the veil. Do with that blood as he did with the blood of the bull, and sprinkle it on the mercy seat and before the mercy seat. So he shall make atonement for the holy place because of the uncleanness of the children of Israel, and because of their transgressions for all their sins. And so he shall do for the tabernacle of the meeting, which remains among them in the midst of their uncleanness. There shall be no man in the tabernacle of meeting when he goes in to make atonement for the holy place, until he comes out, that he may make atonement for himself, for his household, and for all the assembly of Israel. And he shall go out to the altar that is before the Lord, and make an atonement for it, and shall make some of the blood of the bull, and shall take some of the blood of the bull and some of the blood of the goat, and put it on the horns of the altar all around. Then he shall sprinkle some of the blood on it with his fingers 7 times, cleanse it, and consecrate it from the uncleanness of the children of Israel. Then he shall kill the goat of the sin offering. The bull provided atonement for the sin of the high priest, and the goat of the sin offering was brought inside the veil and sprinkled 7 times and before the mercy seat. This made atonement for the holy place. According to the Jewish tradition, it was on the Day of Atonement that the high priest, and only the high priest, could pronounce the name of God, the sacred, that word, tetragrammaton, is that right? It's Tetragrammaton. Does that sound right? Tetragram? And that's Yahweh. When he entered the holy place with the blood of the goat set apart to the Lord, he uttered the name. He was the only one, and that was the only time when the name could be spoken. And the high priest was to pass on the exact pronunciation of the name of God in his successor with his dying breath. That's pretty amazing. He was the only one. Let's see. And the high priest was to pass it on with his dying breath. Okay. So he shall make atonement for the holy place because of the uncleanliness of the children of Israel. This blood was applied to the mercy seat, but also to the tabernacle and altar itself. This blood cleansed the house of God itself, which was made ceremonially unclean by men's contact touch. Both the priest of God and the house of God needed to be cleansed by atoning blood before atonement of Israel for Israel as a nation could be made. The use of the 3 terms, their transgressions, their sins, their uncleanliness, gives extreme emphasis to the idea of Israel's sinfulness. This was an atonement for the depths of sin. After the high priest's sin was dealt with, and after the tabernacle itself was cleansed, Aaron then dealt with the sin of the people through the transgressions of sin and release of the scapegoat. This here, when I get done, I'll have to stop for a minute. Aaron shall lay both of his hands on the sacrifice's head. And as the high priest did this, he confessed all the iniquities of the children of Israel. This confession of sin was an important part of the Day of Atonement ritual, linking the concept of the confession of sin and atonement. The confession of sin was to be complete. Now him taking this, now I don't know how many of you have ever been involved with a goat at all. Well, I wasn't really involved till I went to work for the children's home. And I put together a 4-H program. And we had cattle that we showed. We had sheep that we showed. We had hogs that we showed. And we had these goats that we showed. Now, I don't know if I'd ever want to have taken a goat by the head and hold on to that head of that goat and talk to him, you know. If you've never had to deal with a goat. And I'll tell you a story about David. He was in 4-H with us, and he was showing this goat. And he had this goat, and this goat jumped up and hit him in the jaw and knocked him down in the ring. And everybody in the whole arena, oh, David, you know, they just knew he was just dead out there in the ring, you know. But he jumped up with that goat, and he slammed that goat back down. I mean, he was serious. And he put that goat back in his place, and he stood right back up. David won that day, that reserve. He got reserve, that's right. But anyway, that goat, when he hit him with that head of his under the chin, he laid him out. So, but anyway, goats are not a normal animal, I'm telling you. No way. So when I read this, it was like, man, to use a goat for this is totally amazing in itself. I mean, it's just to make this sacrifice and for this scapegoat. The triple use of all the iniquities, all their transgressions, all their sins gives a strong emphasis. He shall release the goat in the wilderness after a prayer. This was a perfect demonstration of atonement under the old covenant before the completed work of Jesus on the cross. Sin could be put away, but never really eliminated. The sin-bearing goat, bearing the sin of Israel, was alive somewhere, but put away. The goat was taken 10 miles out of Jerusalem, and there were refreshment stations each mile along the way for the man who escorted the goat out of the city. He finally went 10 miles and then watched the goat wander off until he could not see the goat no more. Then the sin was gone, and the Day of Atonement was considered complete. Now, if that's not totally amazing. Now, for these people to go through all this, I mean, up to this point, from the high priest getting out of his normal attire, washing himself completely, cleansing himself, putting on these white clothes, making sacrifices first for him and his family and the Israelites. I mean, but and it went right on down to the tabernacle, cleansing all that, and using exactly, and now these are exactly what God told them to do. Exactly. Every step. And that was to be, and it says, and this is to be done forever. This is not something that just happened that one day. This is once a year, on that day. And so this is totally amazing to watch all those steps, and to the bulls being sacrificed, the goats to being sacrificed, the one goat to be an escaped goat. How does that, I mean, if you had to think about that, is that something that we as a people would have come up with? I don't think so. I don't think that would have even been a thought process for me. I don't know about y'all, but I don't see, that's pretty deep. I mean, and I guess the really amazing thing is if you think about the animals that God saved on the ark, He's using them now for sacrifice to take people's sins away, or not away, but cover their sins. This is all amazing to me. Let's see. The first goat was a picture how atonement is granted. Sins are forgiven because punishment has been put on the innocent party. Okay? The second goat, the scapegoat, was a picture of the effect of atonement. The penalty of our sins is cast far away, never to return. Sin was put away, but not completely. How could one know for certain that God had accepted the sacrifice on the Day of Atonement? What if someone accidentally encountered the scapegoat in the wilderness? What if the scapegoat wandered back among the people of Israel? Through their traditions, the Jews began to deal with these concerns. So now there's all these concerns about what God told them to do. Now what do we need to do? What happens if that goat shows back up? What if somebody out there in the wilderness comes in encounter with that goat? What do we do with him? Is this sacrifice no good anymore? That's an amazing thought, huh? So we just went through all these rituals for what? For not. Go ahead, James.
The last sentence of chapter 16, I think, it means a lot to me. It simply says, Aaron did as the Lord commanded Moses.
That's right.
So, does it have to make sense to us?
That's exactly right.
Are there going to be things that maybe we wonder about? No. But it doesn't have to make sense. We're probably going to wonder about things. But let's just do what God
That says.
And God's going to take care of the rest of the time.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you all for being here tonight. So you'll have to suffer through me one more week. So I'll be here again next week. So, but we do have James speaking Sunday for us, so that'll be a blessing again. So we appreciate you being here, James. So, all right. Bobby, you got closing prayer. All right, would you do that for us, please?